it's really about the creative and amazing sort of indigenous leadership in Hawaii in the 18th and 19th century. And it's really a story that's one of hope and courage and resolve, and really looking at how, these native rulers engaged with the outside world in creative ways and embraced other people and cultures to form, a bilingual country, really based around indigenous Hawaiian values and perspectives. That's really what the book is about. I started studying in really great depth. I just wanted to answer a simple question like, what's the origin of an ahupua'a? And so I started to study our land tenure system here in Hawaii. And as the deeper I got into it, the more rigorous it was and the more ordered I recognized it to be. But not ordered in like a Cartesian sense, but ordered in a very Hawaiian, place-specific way. And it was really that knowledge that built off of our land tenure system that led me to reading original documents and letters from rulers in the 18th century in the Hawaiian language. And I started to just realize that these leaders hadn't ever been portrayed in a light that I thought showed how really intelligent and creative they were in the midst of challenges and tremendous change. And it was really that insight that I thought, man, there's a lot going on here that I'm not sure has been expressed before. And I think it's probably because I was looking at Hawaiian language sources and a lot of archival documents that people didn't have access to as much, that helped me to frame a new story. I can't say that there were too many challenges, to be honest. Things in the archives just came to me really quickly, and once I came up with this idea and theory that I was really interested in, we came up with a term called Oiwi optics. So my book isn't really interested in sort of what missionaries did for Hawaiians or to Hawaiians, but much more what Hawaiians did for ourselves. And we frame that Oiwi optics. So it's really about trying to see how our leaders were viewing this engagement with the outside world from their perspective and in their terms. And I think once I came up with that concept, there was so many things that revealed themselves to me. It wasn't hard. Yeah, I wish I could say it was hard, but it wasn't that hard. Yeah. I guess a couple things. The one was that Hawaiian leaders in the 18th century had such a firm sense of who they were as Hawaiians. I mean, these were people that descended from chiefs that unified our islands, from gods, and they kept that with them, and they wrote incredible Hawaiian mele and mo'olelo in our own language. But because they had such a solid foundation of who they were, they didn't have any fear in engaging with outside concepts and ideas. And so they met everyone in the world, in their travels. Part of my book kind of documents Alexander Liholiho and Lata Kapuaiwa when they're 16 and 18 years old, traveling through the United States, France, and Britain, meeting with Prince Albert, sitting on the throne of Charlemagne in France, visiting the Louvre. And it became really apparent in reading through their journals that they never saw themselves as inferior with anyone. And not that they saw themselves as better than anyone either, but they knew who they were as Hawaiians in a changing world. And that was a really powerful thing for me when I realized that, because so much of that resonates with me, as a Hawaiian in 2015. And I think a lot of that the cultural reawakening and renaissance that's happened since the 1970s has been trying to restore parts of that, of our identity, you know. So that was certainly something really amazing and empowering that I found. And then their diplomatic prowess was amazing. I mean, imagine how could this little country in the middle of the Pacific, you know, tiny little islands, be recognized by the most powerful nations in the world as a sovereign and independent state in the 18th century, in a time period where, you know, the British were colonizing South America and administering colonies in Africa and other places in the world. Hawaii was able to achieve independence, and it was because of this diplomatic prowess that the chiefs had really initiated this sort of policy of, you know, diplomatic engagement with the outside world, and sending leaders to France and Britain to negotiate on the behalf of the kingdom really set this precedent. You know, as early as 1793, there was a letter from Kamehameha I, you know, to King George III, and so it was really that series of events that was set in place that allowed, you know, all the way up until Queen Liliuokalani's time, when she's protesting the illegal annexation. She doesn't only lobby, you know, U.S. diplomats. She writes to British diplomats, you know, in a formal protest that we found when I was in London. But I hadn't realized that that was really a policy that I believe was developed early on, probably from Kamehameha I, and successive leaders sort of bought in and continued that international diplomatic negotiations with countries of superior military force. But they were never, so they were outmatched militarily, but not intellectually. And that was really fascinating to me. Yeah, you know, that's funny. I'm just so honored, you know, and surprised that I got this award tonight. So someone asked me a similar question, and I said, I have no idea. But I am working on a very different book right now. It's called I Chanted for My Grandmother. And it's just a story of how I learned to be who I am, and I learned my politics mostly through these really gracious interactions with my grandmother and how she carried herself. So it's going to be a very different book. It's much more personal, and but something that I can do to honor everything that she was, and also something that maybe younger Hawaiian males like me that, you know, are looking for themselves might be able to relate to stories, their relationship with their grandmothers.